Roaring Kitty is playing all of us.
Roaring Kitty is back after a years-long hiatus.
Making his first appearance on
Keith
X.
Gill coming out of the woodwork to talk about GameStop.
GameStop shares surging over, look at that, 50%.
He disclosed that he has a position in GameStop worth over $200 million.
Massachusetts securities regulator looking into Gill's GameStop trading activity and social media use.
Before we get started, let's establish one thing. No self-made person plays with hundreds of millions of dollars. So, first things first, we need to strip away this lackadaisical facade that Roaring Kitty is putting on.
Oh, can you guess what beer that is? Can you guess?
Although it is funny, entertaining, and an absolute masterclass on how to stick out in the age of mass content, there is no way that this is not entirely intentional and planned. And perhaps that's part of the brilliance. In this video, we'll cover Roaring Kitty's position in detail, what GameStop seems to be doing to counter it, and 3 different endgames that I see panning out. Make sure you stick around until the end, where I'll cover where else I'm looking outside of GameStop, because heaven knows I wouldn't touch this company right now with a 10-foot pole. We have a ton to get into, let's get started. To get us all on the same page, let's first break down Roaring Kitty's position in detail. There are 2 components to his current position. He currently has $116 million worth of GameStop stock. This is just the same if you were going to buy GameStop on Robinhood, or in his case E-Trade, and just buy the stock on the open market. But there's a really important second component. He also has a ton of call options. In case you're not familiar with call options, if you are, you can scroll to the end of this chapter. But call options are a financial contract that gives the holder the right, but not the obligation, to buy a stock at a specified price. This specified price is known as the strike price. The stock must be at or above the strike price by the time the contract expires. In the case of Roaring Kitty, his call options expire on June 21st, and his strike price is $20. So, as long as GameStop's stock price remains above $20, he can exercise the stock option anytime between now and June 21st. However, if the stock price falls and stays under $20, then his call options are considered out of the money and are worthless. But assuming that the price of GameStop stays at or above $20, he'll have 2 choices to make from there. The first choice is that he can immediately sell the shares that he gained. Let's use an example to illustrate this. If GameStop is at $30 a share on June 21st, and he decides to exercise those call options, he'll immediately have a profit of $10 per share, since the call option contract entitles him to purchase GameStop stock at $20 a share. If he decides to do this, how many shares will he have? Well, he has 120,000 call options, and one call option is worth 100 shares of the company. So, 120,000 times 100 is 12 million shares. And assuming that's $30 price when he decides to exercise, he'll net $10 before taxes for each of the 12 million shares, giving him a handsome profit of $120 million. And this doesn't include his open market buy position. But here's the interesting thing. I actually don't think he'll sell his shares. More on that in a moment. That covers what Roaring Kitty's position looks like today. But now let's talk about what GameStop is doing, because it's almost as interesting. GameStop reported earnings early. This is sort of unusual. Companies do this from time to time, but it's usually when they have blowout earnings to share with the street, and they'll use it as a strategic maneuver to either upstage competitors or just to attract attention from analysts and institutional investors. But GameStop had the opposite of a blowout quarter. Sales were down 29% year over year, which is way worse than analysts predicted. They also, and this is the important part, announced that they would be issuing an additional 75 million shares. Basically, the company is using their ridiculous stock price to do a capital raise. This is basically the opposite of a stock buyback program. It's also, perhaps, a bit of a special poison pill. More on that in a moment. I just thought this was kind of funny. In their earnings report, they do give away the story. They say, quote, "The market price of our common stock has seen extreme price fluctuations that do not appear to be based on the underlying fundamentals of our business or results of operations." The company is basically embracing their meme stock status and using it as a moment to raise capital. Okay, now that we've level set on the situation today, let's go into what I think. Damn. Did you hear that? I wonder if the mic picked that up. She just fucking. Yeah, she just ripped, dude. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Okay, so now that we've level set on the situation today, let's go into the interesting part. What do we think Roaring Kitty is up to? After watching his live stream on Friday, I was ready to roast him for doing a pump and dump. But I rewatched it, and I think he might be up to something that has the potential to be really, really interesting. Maybe. The way I'm seeing it today is there are 3 possible outcomes. I'll start with the most distasteful and go into the most interesting, and the one that I hope happens. The first possibility. This is a simple pump and dump. I hate this outcome. This, in my opinion, is also the least likely outcome because it's a great way for him to end up in jail. He's already under investigation by the SEC and the state of Massachusetts. Lisa Bragancia, an attorney and former branch chief at the SEC, said in a recent Wired article titled "Roaring Kitty is Playing with Fire," quote, "You can't trade and tweet. You just can't. You are just inviting an investigation." Roaring Kitty is required under a little understood facet of securities law to provide his audience with advance warning of any sale, even if doing so would jeopardize his profits. Bragancia continues in the article, "The problem is when you change your position. Before you sell, you better tell the marketplace. Most people on social media don't think that way. The initial social posts are not the thing that is going to get them in trouble. It's the stuff we can't see." The SEC hasn't made clear its thinking on the matter, but former chair Jay Clayton, in a recent interview with CNBC, implied that the agency will be eager to prevent further volatility in the price of GameStop, which risks imposing large-scale losses on investors. Bragancia is quoted at the end of that Wired article in a way that summarizes the whole thing. She says that the SEC laws around market manipulation are like Aesop's fables. They tell a story, and you should take a moral away from it. I'll go ahead and assume that Roaring Kitty does not want to be that moral. So, in my opinion, there's no question whether or not he's pumping. The point where he's playing with fire is if he dumps or not. On to his second option, and I think this might be the least likely, is that he's operating in cahoots with GameStop to help them with a liquidity event so that they can start building out the next phase of their planned growth. This seems like it would be a minefield of legal issues, but if we look at the actions alone, it's not impossible, and by game theory seems to signal the highest win-win for Roaring Kitty and GameStop. Plus, he did say during the live stream that he supports the leadership of GameStop. However, and this is why it was important to level set where we're at today, the actions that GameStop is currently taking, announcing early and diluting the shit out of their stock, makes it look like this isn't the case. But it does lead us into the third possible outcome. And this is my favorite, and man, I really do hope that this is the one he's doing. It's also probably the most bold. Like we said up top, Roaring Kitty has 5 million shares of GameStop today. His 120,000 call options, as long as the price remains above $20 a share, will entitle him to an additional 12 million shares. This means he'll own 17 million shares of GameStop. When measured against the current shares outstanding, he'll own 5.5% of the company. If GameStop does end up issuing those 75 million shares that they had board approval for, then his ownership will dilute to be about 4.4% of the company. And a signal here is that there are regulatory implications on the matter. 5% is a bit of a magic number in activist investing. Once an activist investor owns 5% of a company, they are required to file a Schedule 13D within 10 days. This filing includes details about the investor's holdings, their intentions, and any plans they have for the company. So the fact that GameStop announced a 75 million share dilution seems to imply that they are not working together and that this could be a special poison pill to keep Roaring Kitty under that 5% ownership mark. This resembles a hostile takeover. Even with 4% ownership of the company, that is still a significant amount of equity and absolutely would warrant a board seat. The icing on the cake for this theory is that when you consider the ownership structure of GameStop, individual investors own way more of GameStop than most stocks on the market. And I'll go ahead and venture to guess that the majority of those investors are fans of Roaring Kitty. The company has a single shareholder class, and so if it went to a vote, they could vote to give him a board seat, or perhaps even a more operational role. How cool would this be? We haven't seen a Wall Street outsider ever really pull an activist play like this before. Well, then again, there was this dude in the 1960s who bought a textile mill that was going out of business and transformed it into one of the largest companies in the world. Who was that? This could be the beginning of a really cool story. I've dedicated years of my life on building a company, Flank, whose sole purpose is to tangibly reduce the wealth gap by empowering individual investors and restoring stakeholder capitalism. If this is an activist play, this is exactly that, and I'm all for it and would even consider taking a position. But again, this is purely speculation, and if this is a simple pump and dump, I want to see him flayed. Figuratively. Regardless of how many disclosures Roaring Kitty makes, he and everyone else knows that the GameStop rise in price was off of the backs of individual investors. Yes, I know how a short squeeze works, but for every hedge fund that got squeezed $1, retail ate 10. That is not the revolution it was pinned to be in 2021. I know many people who lost money, some minuscule amounts, some serious amounts. This is not the way I want our generation to operate in the markets. It reduces trust, and it makes them look like they're a game, and it's not. So anyway, what else is going on? Elon Musk recently tweeted or X'd that if the OpenAI deal with Apple closes, then he will not allow employees to bring iPhones on site. This is a little bit of a weird outrage, and I don't take it as a ding against my position on Apple. Disclosure, I do hold Apple. They have over 1 billion handsets in the world, and Musk has just over 100,000 employees. This seems to me like it's just him trying to break his way into the news cycle and promote his own brand. Also, Amex is on a pretty interesting tear. The stock is up around 20% year to date, and they have a great reason why. Younger card members are flocking to the brand and see it as the best premium card for young wealthy people. It's becoming a bit of a status symbol amongst younger crowds, and no longer seen as just your dad's credit card. This is also in the back of a mega trend that more consumers are purchasing on credit. TransUnion reported in a recent study that 84% of Gen Z consumers had at least one credit card at the ages of 22 to 24. This is significantly higher than the 61% of millennials at the same age a decade ago. And so I'll be doing research on American Express to see if it could be a possible buy. I'll be posting it on our Flank platform. You can check it out by becoming a member on our Patreon. All right, where else am I looking? I'm starting to take a look at healthcare company Hims as a possible stock to study as well. Hims is a telehealth company focused on providing accessible and affordable healthcare solutions, and it has been gaining traction with their innovative approach and expanding customer base. With the healthcare industry rapidly evolving, I believe Hims could be well positioned for significant growth and could be an interesting opportunity. I use the service, not going to tell you for what, and I really do like it. It's pretty disruptive. I'll also be publishing analysis on Hims on our site. That's all for this episode. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider liking and subscribing. We also have a link in our description to join our Patreon, where we're offering early access to our Flank platform. This will help you with a step-by-step process on how to research companies like Warren Buffett. Early supporters will have our ear in steering which way they want to take the platform, and a bunch of other perks. So I hope you'll consider joining and supporting us. This helps us remain independent. We'll see you next time.